What's up, team? How we doing today? Here's hoping everything works. I feel like there's been some weird stuff going on with Joe's stream rig lately, and I haven't figured out what it is. It's not data. Sometimes when I run it the way it is, it works fine. Sometimes when I run it the way it is, it's not. Which is weird to me. Like, why would it be fine in some cases and not in others? Don't know the answer to that, but here we are. So I'm turning a bunch of stuff down. It might just be that me throwing a whole bunch of extra stuff at it. We'll see. We'll see. Welcome to YouTube. Welcome to YouTube. There are a lot of reasons for doing this today. I'll just say that. It's been quite a journey. Me trying to figure out what I'm doing with streaming here. Yeah, all looks like it's gonna be okay. Cool, cool. Awesome. All right. Welcome to a little bit different setup today. I've been trying to change a few things up, trying to get to the point where things are a little more stable. I am attempting to nail down how I want like my online content calendar to look, how I want to publish some things, because I've been like working on a bunch of things that haven't been released, and I know you've seen absolutely nothing from me. So I'm gonna keep pushing on some things, and I'll notify you when it releases, which is always fun. YouTube surprised you. Welcome. Here's the thing, Blake. I really want to know, because I know you struggle with the latency thing. I'm curious if this will be any faster, because YouTube lets me have access to this ultra low latency deal much faster than, like, to use that feature on Twitch, I have to go all the way up to like partner status, which it's going to take me a long time to reach there, but just not going to do it. Just not going to keep plugging away at that one, because just give you a time hack. There are a lot of things about Twitch that I loved. A lot of things about Twitch didn't care for. But is what it is, right? Everything's got its own deal. Do you want me to like give you some form of like a what is that? Some form of a like, here's a timestamp? I don't even know how to give you that. I can start counting. And then see, here's let's do this. This will be fun. When all right, I'm gonna start counting. As soon as I say go, then I'll start at 1. And then you type got it. Go ahead and type got it and just hit enter as soon as you hear me start going. Just give me the time on our phone seconds wise. That would work too, I suppose. But my phone says 9:41 because I have it plugged in. I can get to you off my Mac. It's 1:05 right now. So it is 1:05 and 10 seconds. 1:05 and 15 seconds. I can do it again if you want. We'll see how many people actually show up today, because making this change, like I announced some kind of pseudo announced early 5 seconds. That's pretty good. Versus the 30-second something that I had with Twitch. That was always painful. Always painful. So yes, I'll take a 5-second any day of the week. Always happy with those. Where is... I'm still trying to like figure YouTube out. There's so many things, like I just don't know where this stuff is. There it is. Okay. Got it. Here's the problem. Bookworm Friday. I messed up whenever I was building my YouTube channel for my online brand. I screwed it up. And I didn't know that I had screwed it up. Basically, what happened was back in the day, I had this YouTube channel, okay? I shouldn't say it's a channel. It's a personal channel, so it just kind of comes along with your account, right? I had set that up and had set up the custom URL so that it was youtube.com/Joe Bulig, which is what I use everywhere, right? So I had that URL on this channel and didn't know it because it's been so long ago since I did that. And whenever I built the other one where all of my current videos are, I couldn't give it that URL because I'd already claimed it, right? Have been trying to make contact with YouTube to see if I could just move it from one to the other. That's impossible. You can't just delete it and reclaim it. You can't move it. You can't really do anything other than leave it. So it's like, okay, well, I could either leave it as is, set up some other URL, and grow the channel to the point where it hits 10,000 subscribers, and then at that point you get access to YouTube's support team and they could help you make the change. Or with me being under 300 subscribers on that channel at the moment, I could just cut my losses, start over where I want to be, and not mess with it. So that's what I opted for. So I am apologizing now. If you've subscribed to me on YouTube already, you need to do it again. It's a mess. Yes, it's complicated. It's a complete disaster as far as trying to get accounts to work from place to place. So my apologies if you've if you've got to subscribe again. What I'm planning to do and what I've started doing is downloading all of the videos that are on my old channel, and I will be posting them here and deleting them there. So that way we'll start to put that bank of videos here on this channel. So that one will eventually get shut down. I suppose I probably should just unlist all that stuff now, hide that channel, and then move it over. I should probably do that, but I don't think I can. I need to delete it is what I need to do, but I can't really do that until this one's got all the videos on it. So we're gonna have a little period here where it's completely messy because YouTube makes this very simple, as you can tell. YouTubers. We're painful, apparently. Do I get to call myself a YouTuber now since I've screwed all this stuff up? Yes, so anyway, welcome to YouTube. Great fun, right? Well, I do have a little bit of a topic for us today. Choosing file types for your data. I did a little bit of prep work for this one because I feel like there's a handful of ways we could approach this. The messy middle ground. It's totally like living in an apartment. Side note, I ran a speed... Did I say this at Bookworm? I ran a speed test on the internet at my apartment. My apartment is... the internet there is run by a company called FiberNet. And at my house and here at the church, we use Spectrum. And the data line here at the church is 400 meg down, 20 up is what that is. And just for fun, I ran a speed test at the apartment. At my house, it was 100 down and 10 up. And I could stream fine on that 10 meg uplink without much issue. However, I've got 20 up here at the church. At my apartment, however, it's 40 meg down, but it's fiber, which means I get 40 meg up. So it's 40 both ways, which means that technically it would be easiest for me to stream at my apartment, which I was not expecting at all. That just seems like it's not correct, but it is. So it's pretty sweet. Yeah, it's nice. Pretty sweet deal, I think. So, is what it is. I just was amazed. It's like, oh, my wife set up the internet there. She was still surprised that she was the one setting it up. It's like, I offered, but she decided to do it. And here we are. Great fun. There are a lot of different, like, okay, file types for your data. So many different places we could take this, right? There are tons and tons and tons of file types out there, whether you realize that or not. And when I'm referring to file types, I'm not specifically saying like use .txt files. Like that's not necessarily what I'm saying. I mean, we'll get into that. But there's also, how do you store opinions? How do you store habit data? Like, you get what I'm saying? Like there's a bunch of these. It's like, okay, we need to first define what types of data we're dealing with, and then nail down what the file types are that you should be using for those. But before you can do any of that, you need to determine what kind of, how do I say that? What kind of restrictions and constraints you want to put on it. Just because if you don't, you can do pretty much whatever you want, right? Which is not what you're after. Making sure all this stuff is out. 100 meg down, 50 up. It's interesting that they do the 50%. I feel like it's usually 100% or like 10%. The 50% is kind of a new one to me. Keeping a side eye on this stream rig over here. It was like throwing all sorts of skipped stuff earlier, which would make it stutter like crazy. But it seems to be doing fine now. Backed off the data significantly, which is weird. Shouldn't have to do that. Makes me think there's something else here running on it. Anyway, stream nightmares. That's what that is. As far as like restrictions for what this data is that I'm talking about, right? Yeah, and this is just exactly it, Blake. What type of data would you need to store? And I think this gets kind of messy with the PKM world today, this personal knowledge management term that people are throwing around, because it somewhat muddies the waters, or really muddies the waters. Anyway, I have 3 different things that I think are the restrictions and the goals, I guess, behind this. The first of which is allowing the portability of your files. This isn't anything new for me, right? I want to be able to take my files and move them from thing to thing without them having issues, right? I need to be able to move them from not just one app to another. I have a PC sitting over here that I sometimes use for my files. I have this Linux box over here that I'm using for my files. And of course I have my main Mac here, plus my phone, right? So I've got this on so many different devices. I don't want it to have to live only on one set of devices. Okay, so that's one goal here, right? I kind of alluded to this, and this kind of goes into the portability here, but I also want it to be able to be used from multiple apps. This actually goes against some of the Obsidian pieces in that there are some syntax elements in Obsidian, or obviously Roam. So many of these different tools, there are a lot of special nomenclatures that you can use that make it difficult to use it on other tools. It just doesn't work. I can put, like take Obsidian for example. I can put front matter on it. Front matter on it. If that'll come out of my mouth correctly. Really all that is it's a way of storing like metadata about the text files at the top of it, right? You didn't realize you could do the metadata thing? Here, you wanna look at it? So here's Obsidian, right? If I go to the top of this, what is it? Is it just the 3? Yeah, you can do it like this. The proprietary stuff in Obsidian. That's where like this I think comes in. Like the front matter piece, if I do that, that will cause it to be a bit of a pain in other apps, right? But also if I go, let's look here. Okay, so this is the today. This is my note for today's note, right? And this is all automated. I just type a single thing and it dumps this all in there, right? But there's some stuff in here and I've been a little leery about this. If you look at these, right? So they've got those arrows on them. Really, this should be linking to a different note, but they use this pipe indicator there. You can see that. So there's the link to the note at the beginning of that, the pipe, and then whatever you put after the pipe is what shows up on the visual version of it. That's kind of what I'm doing here, right? In that this is showing a Luke 11. It's got a hash, $13, and then it has the pipe, and then it puts Luke 11:13. If I go to this, it just shows Luke 11:13, but the actual link uses the header, the H1 tag, if you follow me on that. So you can create a link and then change what is visible on the link. I don't know of another tool that does it that way, which means that if I use that like I am, it breaks whenever I use some other tool. So if I open that in Sublime Text, it doesn't know what to do with it. It's trying to find a link to that with the full pipe and everything in it. Makes it messy. Super fun. Which is really interesting because I used to use a pipe, just that vertical line, I used to use that as part of a file name structure. So I used to use that whenever I would build out, like, here's a project code, pipe, and the name of the code. Just that way I could use colons and dashes and stuff in my project names, which I had a tendency to do. But whenever I did that and brought that over into Obsidian, those file names had pipes in them, and then that screwed up all the linking because of Obsidian's way of treating those pipes. So you have to be a little careful with that. That is some of what I don't want to deal with. But again, like, as you can see, I'm using it to a degree. The last little restriction here, or the goal that comes with what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to prevent data loss. It's been fascinating to watch these folks leave Roam for Obsidian and how painful that is to see, because you can't really just point blank import it. Can you? Actually, I think there might have been, there was a thing that was trying to do it. I don't remember how it worked though. Import from Roam. I remember somebody talking about this. Maybe there is a way. The way they're talking. Markdown format importer. Does that mean you can export Roam to Markdown? Yeah, navigating the data easily. Yes, absolutely, 100%. So you can get a Roam backup. Interesting. You can export a Roam graph in Markdown format. Links to blocks are not preserved. Links to pages show up. Them and their crazy block references. Oh, Roam. So Roam and Obsidian don't play nice, I don't think. It doesn't seem that they play nice. But this is one of the things that I'm always trying to pay attention to, right? Is how do I move from thing to thing? Because this stuff comes up and goes so frequently. We've talked about this. But I think it's important that whenever you're trying to prevent that data loss, that you have to choose very carefully what types of data you're going to be storing, and then choosing the right formats for that data. And I wrote down 5 different types of data that we need to choose file types for. Okay, so keep this stuff in the back of your mind, like the portability piece, which means being able to use it on multiple apps and then preventing the loss of data. If I'm trying to use those 3 goals in the creation of my data, then it's going to dictate what we can do. Yes, in 3 months, everybody's going to be onto something else. Absolutely. It's the way this works. Always. It amazes, like, even people who want the portability find themselves using proprietary tools like Craft. Can Craft get the export? We had this conversation with Curtis this last Wednesday, and he's big on Craft, of course, right? And I can't say that I have any interest in Craft, but he obviously does. But there are so many of these things out there that I think people really want to be the voice on a certain tool, so they jump quickly so that they can create content on it quickly, and then it gets their name out there. I know of a couple people who have done that, one of which did it for Obsidian and wanted to be one of the voices at the very beginning and then disappeared once they got there. Not going to mention names because I don't approve of other practices these people have had, but it is what it is. That's what, you know, maybe that's what I need to do. I need to start like critiquing content creators. That would go over well, wouldn't it? We're not going to do that. Not at all. Just sounds like a bad idea. It would be fun, but it's a bad idea. Okay, let's go through these types of data. Let's start with an easy one. Tasks. Okay. Where and what type of file do you store your tasks in? Now, I'm assuming that you're storing them digitally. In my particular case, I don't. There are some, I think, that end up digital just because they're shared with a work colleague or two. Mostly one-way street there. But that's what I do. Don't store it digitally. It's all analog for me for the most part. But if you do store it digitally, the question there is, what kind of file should you keep it in? And the trick here is that most people don't keep it in any file. None whatsoever. And that could be good if you like using a tool. Like this is one of the problems, right? Think of email. Email allows you to use different clients. It's pretty common, right? You could use Outlook, you can use Gmail, you could use MailMate, you can use, you name it. Everything but Hey. You can't use Hey. You have to go all in with them. But you can move from thing to thing pretty easily, right? With tasks, it's not that way. If you're with Trello, it's really messy to get it from Trello to, say, Todoist, or from Todoist to OmniFocus, or from OmniFocus to things. Like, trying to move from one thing to the next is not a simple process. I can try a new one every 3 months. But again, like, you're talking about content creators, and we can justify just about any move we want just because I can make money off of the move by making things about the move. From bullet journal to OmniFocus. I could do that too. Or back and forth. This is why, like, whenever I needed a templating digital task list for repeated projects, I just went straight to OmniFocus. I didn't even want to try to explore what's a good templating to-do list. Like, no. Let's just use the one I know. I even have a page on my Stream Deck for OmniFocus at this point, just to make it easy to create templates, sort them, move them in the Kanban board that I use. I'm not trying to be all fancy like Sparky. No, not doing that. How long have I used Omni? I mean, I have had some deviations from OmniFocus. A couple of those, I think, were because I got tired of writing about OmniFocus. So I could see how people get there. And I see how, like, the content teams get tired and move on. Like, there's one big team I know of that moved away from Basecamp to Notion because a certain feature didn't exist, but that feature does exist if you add a plugin to it. They ended up spending more on Notion than they would have on Basecamp with the plugin. Well, then you didn't want the one feature, you wanted to switch. But they told everybody it was because of that one feature. So that stuff happens, and it's pretty regular, I think, which is a bit frustrating for a lot of folks. But all I'm getting at is if you're using a task manager, I mean, again, this is the easy one. Can you get your data out of it and into something else? Generally, no. It's a hard one to move from thing to thing. That much I know. However, the one tool I know of that this does work with is OmniFocus, because you can get it out into task paper format in just a plain text format. And then you can use like the task paper tools on top of it. I don't think you can get task paper for Todoist. Does that work? That would be sweet if it did. Todoist, templates, it's versus. It doesn't look like it. Yeah, it doesn't look like that works. So I don't know of many that do that. So I know that OmniFocus and task paper can go back and forth, but that's it. Okay, so that's tasks. Let's go into one that's a little more straightforward, I think. Time. This is data, right? So we're talking about anything that's time bound. This could be a task that's associated to a specific time in the future or in the past. How do you record and store that data? Generally, people do it in a calendar or like reminders apps and such. That can work well. I just throw it in an iCal calendar. That's all I do. But that's because that format has been around for a long time now, and I feel like it's going to stick around for a long time. Again, tasks like I'm doing it on bullet journaling, OmniFocus, like I know I can move that pretty easy. Time with calendaring and events and reminders and such, like that's all either such a small volume, like with the Do app. Like if it's such a small volume, it's easy to move just manually. But if it's a large number, then it's a bit of a pain. So like calendaring, you can always export calendars and import them into other ones. That one's pretty easy. So that one's pretty straightforward, I think. Let's go to one that's a little bit more difficult, number tracking. What if you want to store or keep track of data about things? Bit tricky, right? How many viewers did I have on individual videos? Do I try to store that? Do I just let YouTube do that? How do I manage those things? Right? Regardless, if you've got budgeting and such, I prefer to do those in just straight Excel files just because those are such a standard. You could use numbers, I think, but I think it gets to be, it's not as portable because just about everybody can use an Excel file. Numbers can import it into an Excel file or a CSV. If it's just raw data that I'm storing, I always store it in a CSV file. But if it's something I'm going to be like adding to over time, it's always an Excel file. Okay. Time, tasks, number tracking. I do keep track of like some graphs and stuff in my bullet journal though. There's two more here. One is records and reference material. I scan stuff pretty regularly. It's always in PDFs. PDFs are such a portable format, no pun intended. It's just easy. I know that everybody can open a PDF. If I ever need to share it with somebody, it's super crazy simple. So every time I'm storing something, it's always as a PDF. That's my preference. I don't try to be fancy and drop it in Evernote or whatever to just store the content in something. Just always in PDF files. The last one here makes things difficult, and it's the one that's probably a bit weird. Thinking. What kind of file type do you need for your thinking data? First question is, what is thinking data? To me, thinking data is anything else I'm externalizing from my brain. That could be a newsletter I'm writing. It could be me processing my thoughts on a decision I need to make. It could be me sharing my opinions with my wife about a particular house. In some form, I'm externalizing that. Now, if you think about what type of information, what medium that comes out as, it's almost always written words. Sometimes it's audio, video, but generally it's written words, at least for me. We'll come back to the AV side of things here, which means that whenever I'm doing that, I'm typing, generally, or handwriting. It eventually ends up into a typewritten format. And when I do that, it's always in a text file because I always know I've got something that can open a text file. With me so far? So that's what I'm doing. Now, let's come back to the AV thing because audio, video, right? What formats should you keep that stuff in? If you keep it at all. There are WAV files, there are MP3s, MP4s, movie files, WebM files, Marcos files, tons of these things, right? I get a lot of these different formats and deal with them all the time. Generally, what I do is I always store video files in MP4. Audio files are always MP3s. Unless I'm after like high quality, then it's a WAV file. Welcome back, Blake. So that's what I'm doing. Great fun, right? Audio, video. Things are holding up. I'm happy. Cool, cool. You need to get some of your old movie files converted. They have data, but they won't play in anything. Have you tried VLC? VLC, I have found, will play just about anything. Even if it's weird encoding. Because you can encode, like you can create a movie file that has data that QuickTime can't play. Like, for example, what am I trying to think of? So at the very beginning of this stream, there's the countdown timer. That countdown timer is just a movie file sitting on top of the background movie file. But it has an alpha channel, which is how you get the transparency so you can see through it. That's not typical on a movie file, which means QuickTime won't play it. It won't actually load that. But VLC will. And obviously OBS will, which is how I play it. They were created on a Mac 10 to 12 years ago. That might be why it's an obsolete formatting inside the movie file. I could see that. Cool, cool. Anyway, that's today. That's just kind of what I wanted to talk through. And I know, I mean, obviously, Blake, you're here. I appreciate that. I knew there would be very few people here today just because of the move. I've probably got a few tweets and emails like, Joe, where are you today? Well, you didn't follow my Twitter. That's how it goes. I'm going to start uploading some stuff this week. That way we can start getting some folks moved over to this channel. Put a note on the... I already put a note on the other channel. Should probably make a video for that. Just explaining it. That would probably help. Put it on that channel and not this one. We'll get there. We will, we will. All right. That all said, I'm going to call it quits for today because I know I've got a few things to do and I want to continue working on this, but I wanted to get this inaugural YouTube channel stream out. That way we can start the process of moving from Twitch over to YouTube. So if you did join me today, thanks team. Subscribe, like, all the things. That helps out a lot, especially with a new channel like this. I know we've got a couple folks that have subscribed since we started this already. Yeah, I mean, it's we'll see how YouTube pans out. You know, we did Bookworm on YouTube this past Friday. That was a pretty good experience for us. So I think we're gonna keep moving. You know, Twitch has got some weird policies they're kicking out lately. Like, they can, if you're streaming on their platform, they reserve the right to ban you based on what you do off the platform as well, which I can't quite figure out if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Regardless, it doesn't seem to fit real well. Anyway, YouTube is where I'm going. Have a lot of things I'm planning to do here over time, so keep an eye on it. If you haven't already, subscribe. Appreciate you being here today, Blake. We'll be back in the same spot 1 week from today, 1 p.m. We'll catch you then. Bye, team.